Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're diving into some really cool stuff today. Ways to sneak in English practice into your daily life.
Oh, yeah.
You know those things that you have to do anyway?
Right.
Chores.
Yes, exactly.
We're turning them into sneaky little language lessons.
I love that idea. You know, it's funny because we often think about language learning as something that has to be separate, you know?
Yeah.
Set aside time for it. You gotta have your books and your flashcards. But
Yeah.
the truth is that there are so many opportunities to learn just all around us, woven into our lives.
And that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
You know how to make it efficient
Exactly.
and use those little bits of time to your advantage.
Yeah.
I bet you never thought that dusting could boost your vocabulary.
Right. Who knew? It's true, though. It's true. Our brains are always learning, even when we don't realize it.
So we're looking at this source material that talks about turning actions into words.
Okay.
Sounds simple enough, but
Yeah.
what does that actually look like?
So it's really about bringing awareness to the language that you're using. So let's say you're washing dishes.
Okay.
Instead of just kind of going through the motions, you're actually saying out loud. Or even in your head, I'm scrubbing the plate, I'm rinsing the soap, now I'm drying the dishes.
So it's like you're narrating your own actions.
Exactly. It's like giving yourself a running commentary, but in English.
Okay. I can see how that would start to help you think in English more naturally.
Yeah, and it forces you to retrieve those words and phrases from your memory. And when you do that, you're strengthening those neural connections. You're making it easier to recall them later.
So it's like a mental workout for your English.
Exactly.
Okay, this is cool. I like where this is going. And then our source material also mentioned this idea of a vocabulary treasure hunt around the house.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, what kind of treasures are we talking about?
Well, think of your house as a giant word bank, right? Like every object, every room, every action can be named and described in English. Spoon, fridge, sofa, carpet, sweeping, mopping. The list goes on and on.
So as I'm tidying up, I could be thinking, I'm putting the books back on the bookshelf. I'm straightening the rug. I'm closing the curtains.
Exactly. And if you come across a word that you're not familiar with, don't just skip over it. Look it up, repeat it out loud, use it in a sentence, and that will help solidify it in your memory.
Okay, so it's like you're really actively engaging with the language.
Exactly.
All right, I'm already starting to see my house in a whole new light.
Right.
But what about those times when chores feel really monotonous?
Yeah.
Just blah.
Yeah.
The source mentions using them as conversation starters.
Okay.
But how do you have a conversation with yourself while you're scrubbing the bathtub?
Well, think about it this way. Even those simple actions that you're doing can be described in full sentences. So instead of just wiping, it's I'm wiping down the counter.
Yeah.
It was really messy, but now it's sparkling clean.
Okay, so you're adding a bit more detail.
Exactly. You're practicing sentence structure, grammar, vocabulary all at once.
So it's like you're creating a story around your chores.
Yeah. And you can even have these conversations in your head.
Oh, your head.
Yeah. It's called internal dialogue. And it's a great way to practice your fluency without the pressure of having someone listen to you.
Okay, so I could be like, oh, I'm cleaning the bathroom because it's really dirty and I need to get it done before my friend comes over.
Exactly. Or I'm organizing my closet because I can never find anything.
It might feel a little silly at first,
Yeah.
but I can see how it would be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's be real though. Sometimes we need a little extra help to stay motivated, especially with chores. Our source suggests bringing in technology to amp up the English practice.
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
Well, think about this. Imagine listening to English podcasts or audiobooks while you're ironing or folding laundry.
I love doing that.
It's a great way to expose yourself to the language in a really relaxed setting.
Yeah.
And even if you don't catch every single word, you're still absorbing the pronunciation, the intonation, the natural rhythm of the language.
Yeah, and it makes the chores go by faster.
Yeah.
What about using voice assistants?
Oh, that's a great idea. Switch your voice assistant to English and use it for everyday tasks.
So instead of just saying play music, I could say, hey Alexa, play some upbeat music for cleaning.
Exactly. Or, what's the weather like today? Set a timer for 20 minutes. The possibilities are endless. It's so interactive and fun.
So you're essentially having a conversation with the technology.
Yes. All in English.
Okay, I'm liking this. I'm liking this. But we also had this idea from our source, the Chore Story Challenge.
Okay.
And this sounds interesting. Tell me more.
So this is where we tap into the power of imagination. Instead of just mechanically going through your chore, try to create a story around it in English.
So if I'm cooking, I can pretend I'm like a celebrity chef hosting a cooking show.
Yes. Welcome back to my kitchen. Today we're whipping up a delicious and healthy stir fry. You can describe each step, explain your choices, even add a little drama. And now for the secret ingredient, passed down through generations in my family.
Or if I'm like cleaning the windows, I can pretend I'm a detective searching for clues.
Exactly. Like, this smudge looks suspicious. Could it be a fingerprint? Time to analyze the evidence.
Okay, this is fun. I like this.
Yeah.
But with all these new words and phrases, how do I make sure I actually remember them?
Well, that's where the good old-fashioned note-taking comes in. Keep a notebook or a language learning app handy and jot down any new words or phrases that you come across.
So if I'm doing laundry and I realize I don't know the word for fabric softener,
Yeah.
I should stop what I'm doing and write it down.
Absolutely. It might seem like an interruption, but those little moments of engagement really make a difference. And then you can use those new words in your chore stories or your internal dialogue.
Yeah, it's a good way to reinforce it.
Oh,
Okay, let's take it up another notch.
okay.
Our source mentions practicing imaginary conversations
Oh, yes.
in English. So how does that work?
Well, it's about pushing yourself beyond just vocabulary and sentences and really working on fluency.
Okay.
So as you're going about your tasks, imagine you're having a conversation with someone in English.
So if I'm folding laundry, I could be like, hey, are you free this weekend? I was thinking about checking out that new exhibit at the museum. What do you think?
Exactly. You can talk about anything. Your day, your dreams, your plans for world domination. The key is to keep that internal dialogue flowing in English.
Okay, so it's like a dress rehearsal for real-life conversations.
Exactly. You can experiment with different phrases, work on your pronunciation, and build your confidence all in a safe, judgment-free zone.
All right, I'm starting to see how all these techniques can work together
Yeah.
to create like a really immersive experience,
Yeah.
all while getting those everyday things done. It's like a secret superpower.
It is, and it's only the beginning. There's one more crucial element that we need to talk about, and it's all about training your brain to think in English.
Ooh. Okay, tell me more.
Even if you're not speaking out loud, try to make an effort to think about what you're doing in English. So if you're washing dishes, you might think to yourself, these plates are dirty, I need to wash them with soap and water.
Oh, so even when I'm not actively speaking or practicing conversations, I can still be reinforcing the language.
Precisely. You're cultivating that inner voice in English. And this is where the magic really happens.
Okay, this is all great. I'm feeling inspired to go tackle my to-do list.
Yeah.
But before I run off to do laundry, let's take a breather and recap what we've talked about so far. Make sure our listeners are with us. What do you say?
Yeah, definitely. We've covered a lot, but it all boils down to a few key ideas.
Right.
We can transform those everyday chores into valuable English practice sessions by narrating our actions, exploring vocabulary, using chores as conversation starters, incorporating technology, creating fun chore stories, writing down new words, practicing those imaginary conversations, and perhaps most importantly, training our brains to think in English.
Yeah, and I think what's great about this is it can be tailored to your own interests and needs.
Exactly.
So if you love cooking, you might focus on expanding your culinary vocabulary and practicing recipes in English. If you love cleaning, maybe you create those elaborate detective stories while you tidy up. The possibilities are really endless.
Absolutely. It's all about finding what works best for you and making language learning a fun and integral part of your everyday life.
And I think it's also important to remember that even small, consistent efforts can make a huge difference.
Yes, definitely. Don't be afraid to start small and gradually incorporate these techniques into your routine.
It's not about perfection. It's about progress.
Yeah.
And most importantly, it's about enjoying the process.
Exactly.
So for all of our listeners out there who are ready to embark on their own chore-powered language learning adventures, what's one piece of advice you would give them to get started?
I would say start simple. Choose one technique that really resonates with you and just try it out during your next chore. It could be as easy as narrating your actions while you wash dishes or naming the objects in your living room in English. Just a few minutes a day can really add up over time.
And don't forget to have fun. If you find yourself getting bored, try a different technique. Challenge yourself to come up with a new chore story.
Yes,
The more you enjoy it, the more likely you are to stick with it.
absolutely. And the more you stick with it, the more progress you'll make.
Okay, so before we move on, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Okay, I like that.
What other everyday activities could you turn into language learning opportunities?
It's a great question. You know, your commute, your workout, your time spent waiting in line, all those moments can become little mini lessons.
If you have the right mindset.
Exactly.
It's all about finding those hidden pockets of potential.
And using them to your advantage.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this insightful deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep those chores sparkling and your English skills even more so.
Yes. You know, it's amazing how much our brains can learn just by being exposed to language in those everyday moments.
It's like we're accidentally turning our homes into these language labs without even realizing it.
Right.
But speaking of hidden potential, I've always been fascinated by this idea of actually thinking in another language.
Ah, yes, that is kind of like the holy grail of language learning, isn't it? To reach that point where you're no longer translating everything in your head,
Right.
but you're thinking directly in English.
It sounds almost impossible,
Yes.
like some sort of mental superpower.
It might seem daunting at first, but it's really just a natural progression as you become more fluent.
So how do we get there? Are there like practical steps that we can take to train our brains to think in English?
Well, a lot of the strategies we've already talked about, like narrating your actions in English, engaging in those internal dialogues, even just using your voice assistant in English, and all of those things help lay the foundation for thinking in the target language.
Okay, so it's like we're slowly shifting our internal monologue over to English.
Exactly. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes. Think of it like building a mental muscle.
Okay.
At first, it might feel a little awkward and strenuous, but with consistent effort, it becomes smoother and more automatic.
So even something as simple as folding laundry can become like a mental workout in English.
Yeah.
Say this is a shirt, it goes in the shirt pile. These are socks, they go in the sock drawer.
Exactly. And here's a little trick that I find helpful. Start by thinking in English about things that you're already really familiar with,
Okay.
like your daily routine, your favorite foods, the layout of your house. You know, these are all great starting points because you already have a strong mental framework for them in your native language.
So instead of just going through the motions of making coffee in the morning, I could think of myself, I'm grabbing the coffee pot, I'm filling it with water. Now I'm scooping the coffee grounds and turning on the machine.
That's it. And as you do this consistently, you'll notice that you start accessing those English words and phrases more quickly and effortlessly. It's like you're training your brain to operate on autopilot in English, at least for those familiar situations.
It's like I'm creating this parallel universe in my mind where everything is labeled in English.
Right. And the amazing thing is that this parallel universe starts to spill over into your real-world interactions. Oh, wow.
You might find yourself thinking of the English word for something before you even have time to translate it.
That's like the goal, right? To reach that point where English feels as natural as your native language.
Exactly. And it's definitely achievable with consistent effort and the right mindset.
Okay, this is all super encouraging, but I think it's important to address something we touched on earlier: motivation. How do we stay motivated to keep practicing, especially when it comes to those less than thrilling chores?
Yeah, motivation is key, especially for those things that we might not naturally enjoy. But here's the thing. When you start seeing those chores as opportunities for growth and learning, it changes your whole perspective.
So instead of dreading those tasks, we can actually look forward to them as a chance to level up our English skills.
Exactly. And the more progress you make, the more motivated you'll become. It's a positive feedback loop. It's also important to be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
You're not going to be perfect every day. Some days you'll be super motivated, and others you might just want to get those chores done as quickly as possible. That's so true.
Yeah.
It's all about finding that balance. And sometimes it's okay to just focus on the task at hand and not worry about the English practice.
Absolutely. It's about listening to your inner needs and finding what works best for you. There's no right or wrong way to do this. The key is to make it a part of your life in a way that feels enjoyable and sustainable.
I think that's great advice for any area of life, not just language learning.
Yeah.
You know, be kind to yourself, celebrate your progress, and don't get discouraged by setbacks.
Well said. And remember, even small, consistent efforts can lead to big results. It's not about cramming in hours of study. It's about integrating those little moments of learning into your daily routine.
It's like those tiny drops of water that eventually fill a bucket. Each one might seem insignificant on its own, but over time they create a significant impact.
Exactly.
Speaking of impact, I think it's time to shift gears a bit and explore some of the broader benefits of incorporating English practice into our lives.
Ooh, I like that.
You know, it goes beyond just vocabulary and grammar.
Well, on a practical level, being able to communicate in English opens up a world of opportunities. You can connect with people from different cultures, travel more confidently, access a wider range of information and entertainment.
It's like breaking down barriers and expanding your horizon.
Exactly. But the benefits go even deeper than that. Language learning has been shown to improve cognitive function, boost memory, enhance problem-solving skills, even increase empathy and cultural understanding.
It's like a mental workout that strengthens not just our language muscles, but our brains as a whole.
Precisely. And the research is quite fascinating. Studies have shown that bilingual individuals tend to have better attention spans, are more adept at multitasking, and are even better at delaying gratification.
So not only can we improve our English skills by doing chores, but we can actually make ourselves smarter in the process. That's a win-win.
It is. And here's another fascinating angle. Language learning can also have a profound impact on our sense of self and our personal growth.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, when you learn a new language, you're essentially stepping outside of your comfort zone and challenging yourself in new ways. This can lead to increased confidence, a greater sense of accomplishment, and even a deeper understanding of your own culture and identity.
It's like you're gaining a whole new perspective on the world and on yourself.
Exactly. And this journey of self-discovery can be incredibly rewarding. You might discover hidden talents, unlock new passions, or simply gain a greater appreciation for the beauty and complexity of language.
Wow, this deep dive has really been a mind-expanding experience. I'm starting to see those everyday chores in a whole new light.
And that's the beauty of it. There's so much potential for learning and growth hidden in those seemingly mundane activities.
Yeah.
It's all about approaching them with a sense of curiosity, creativity, and a willingness to embrace the unexpected.
I think you've just given our listeners a whole new reason to tackle that laundry pile. But before we send everyone off on their chore-powered language learning adventures, I want to make sure we've covered everything. Is there anything else we should touch on?
I think we've covered a lot of great ground, but there's one more point I'd like to emphasize: the importance of finding your own rhythm and creating a learning experience that feels authentic to you.
I love that. It's a reminder that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to language learning.
Exactly. Some people might thrive on structure and routine, while others might prefer a more spontaneous and flexible approach. The key is to experiment, listen to your inner needs, and find what resonates with you.
It's about embracing your own unique learning style and creating a path that feels both enjoyable and sustainable.
And don't be afraid to seek out support and inspiration along the way. Connect with other language learners, join online communities, explore different resources, and most importantly, have fun with it.
It's a reminder that we're not alone on this journey. There's a whole community of language enthusiasts out there ready to cheer us on and share their own experiences.
It's a wonderful feeling to be part of that global community.
Well said. I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about, but I'm eager to hear what other insights you have to share. Are you ready to continue exploring the fascinating world of chore-powered language learning?
Absolutely. I'm always excited to delve deeper into this topic. There's so much more to discover.
Then let's dive right back in.
Yeah.
I have a feeling this next part of our conversation is going to be even more insightful and inspiring.
I have a feeling you're right. I can't wait to share some more tips and strategies that will help our listeners turn those everyday chores into transformative learning experiences.
I'm all ears. Let's continue our deep dive and see what other hidden treasures we can uncover. So we've talked about thinking in English and staying motivated.
Right.
But I'm wondering, how do we actually know if all this is working?
That's a great question. It's easy to get so caught up in the process that we forget to step back and check our progress.
Yeah. Are there specific things we should be looking for?
Well, those traditional things like test scores and fluency assessments can be helpful, but they don't always tell the whole story.
Right.
I think it's more about noticing those subtle shifts in how you interact with English in your everyday life.
Okay, what kind of shifts are we talking about?
Well, maybe you start to understand more of what you hear on English podcasts or TV shows.
Okay.
Or maybe you feel more comfortable, chatting with native speakers. Or it could even be something as simple as realizing that you're thinking in English more often without having to translate in your head.
So it's more about those aha moments where you're like, wow, I'm actually getting better at this.
Exactly. And those moments can be so motivating. They really reinforce the idea that all those little efforts are actually paying off.
Yeah. It's like those unexpected bursts of fluency that catch you off guard.
Yes.
You're like, whoa, where did that come from?
Exactly. And they tend to happen more and more frequently as you continue to practice.
It's a snowball effect.
It is. The more you learn, the more confident you become, and the more you create those opportunities to actually use your English.
I love that analogy. And as that snowball rolls, It picks up more and more snow, gaining momentum until it's like unstoppable. That's the power of consistency.
Absolutely.
This has been such an inspiring conversation.
Yeah.
I'm already thinking of all the ways I can turn my everyday chores into these little language learning adventures.
That's great. And remember, it's not just about chores, it's about finding those moments throughout your day and transforming them into opportunities.
Right, like the commute, the workout, waiting in line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the more creative you get, the more fun you'll have. You know, language learning should be enjoyable, not a chore in itself.
That's such an important point.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up this awesome deep dive, do you have any final words of wisdom for our listeners?
You know, I would say embrace the journey. Language learning isn't a race, it's a marathon.
I like that.
There will be ups and downs, moments of frustration, even times when you want to give up. But if you stick with it, stay curious, and keep exploring, the rewards are immeasurable.
That is beautifully said. It's a reminder that language learning is this lifelong pursuit, full of surprises and challenges, but ultimately a journey of self-discovery.
And who knows, maybe you'll even discover a newfound love for those everyday chores along the way.
I think I have. This deep dive has really changed my perspective.
That's great to hear.
Thanks for sharing your incredible insights and for encouraging us to embrace the magic of language learning in our everyday lives.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all of our listeners out there, we hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of chore-powered language learning. We hope you're feeling inspired to take what you've learned and turn those everyday tasks into opportunities for growth. Until next time, happy cleaning and even happier learning.